Hey, everybody, how's it going? This is Seth Williams. You're listening to the REtipster podcast. This is episode 210. Show notes for today can be found at retipster.com/210. And today, I'm talking with Robin Seib. So Robin has been running onlinelandmarket.com, and it's a website where he does one thing. He sells land, and he sells it on behalf of other land investors who just don't want to do the work of selling or don't have time to do it. It's kind of a nice alternative on the disposition side of the business. And selling land is something people have been having a harder time with this past year. And even if it wasn't something that people were having a hard time with, it's always an important thing to talk about in the land business. Because if you don't have the ability to sell or dispose of your properties quickly, things are going to be a lot harder than they need to be. After all, this is where all of our paydays come from. So we're going to talk with Robin about his secret sauce for selling land. We'll talk about which listing sites are the most and least helpful and worth the time to list on, how to deal with Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, all kinds of stuff. We're going to get into it right now. So Robin, welcome. How's it going?
Hey, Tess, thank you for having me. And to be honest, it's amazing. When I started my land flipping journey in 2020, I started listening to your podcast, and now I'm on here. Look at that. And you're on a great show, and you have this radio broadcaster voice, right? I love that. I could just probably play that for my baby to sleep sometimes to just calm them down. So thank you for having me today, man.
Thanks so much. You know what's funny about that? Whenever I hear my voice in recordings, I can't stand it. It drives me crazy. But I have learned how to take this voice and kind of mold it into something that's somewhat, palatable to the ear. So I appreciate you saying that.
I love that, man. It's good.
Yeah. So let's get a quick history lesson for you. So when did you first get into the land business? How did you even discover this land world?
Here's a brief bio, right? I'm born and raised in Germany, which you hear probably from my weird accent. We live in Spain and in Dallas. My wife and I married. We have a 9-month-old daughter, cute little dog, and we're traveling between the continents because we're both big-time travelers. I'm in land since 2020. And before that, I'm an entrepreneur of 15 years. I was always in the real estate industry, first on the construction side and service side. In Germany, we do a little bit different construction, but we had an engineering firm and funding firm and a window and doors company and all that kind of stuff, which drove me crazy because 2018, I ended up in burnout. Right? I was pretty bad, man. I was three months out of life. You can't imagine, right? We met a couple of times, right? And normally I have energy and I'm always let's go, right? And I was 3 months just lying in bed, I didn't know what to do. So I got out of that, stole my construction company I had at that time, and just said, okay, what do you do now? And a friend came up and said, hey, you want to do real estate investing with me? I said, cool, yeah, let's do it. What do we do? He said, let's flip houses. Okay, let's flip houses, right? So we started 2018 flipping houses in Germany, which is completely different from here. We don't have direct mail. We don't have data. It was just man, you need to build relationships with realtors. You just need to play a different game, right? So our first year, I think we flipped 100 houses. In our second year, we flipped almost 300 houses. And with all that means, right? Dealing with contractors again. And contractors have this specific language, right? You deal with contractors all day. And when you ask them, when are you finished? They tell you tomorrow, but they never exactly define what tomorrow they mean. The tomorrow, in a week, in a month, in a year, in a decade, After 2 years doing that, I felt pretty burned out again. I was pretty close, and I promised myself you will never get back in this dark place. So I went on a 2 months leave to Australia, right? I had the opportunity to swap houses with some guys, and I was 2 months on the beach hanging out, kite surfing, right? Swimming with dolphins, all this amazing stuff you do. I came back, said my partner, I'm out. He said, are you crazy? Are you kidding me, right? And yeah, I said, hey, I can't do this anymore. It's not good for my house. Okay. But look, before you drop out this partnership, there's this guy coming from the US talking about land, and you can flip land in the US. I said, okay, can I do that from my laptop? That was my first question I asked him, right? He said, yeah, from my understanding, you just do it from the laptop, because I had never been in the US. I was talking English pretty decent, but not on a business level, right? I was okay. let me go to that event. And that was Jack Bosch, right? So I think he made one event in Germany in 2020, February. I was sitting 3 days there. I said, hey, you know what? That sounds amazing. You can do it from the laptop. And when 10% of the outcomes that he is promoting here, I mean, you know how that is when you sit in a coach event, right? Like when 10% of that is the truth, I want to do this. So enrolled in coaching, and then April 2020, the COVID hit, right? So I couldn't even travel to the US, right? We couldn't even open bank accounts. And, you know, I took it from there. I need a year to do my first deal. Made like $0 in profit on that. Made everything wrong you can do wrong. But like, guess what? We figured it out. Like in 2021, it was 65 deals. 2022, it was around 300 deals we did. And 2023, I think it was 450. And this year, probably we will be involved in like 600-700 transactions. I don't know where we'll be at of the year. Yeah. So that's a little brief heads up. And today, we sell land for other land investors. You mentioned that. We still run our wholesale business. I run the land fund where we buy notes and fund deals on hard money loans. Yeah, we have a development company, so we entitle deals for others. I don't do so much subdivides. I don't enjoy it so much, and I don't have really strong partners, but we do them. Like I think this year we did 5 minors and like 8-9 major subdivides with partners together. And I guess today, like we're a deal facilitator. This is what I am, right? Like you have a land deal and you don't know what to do, or you're like hanging around with that, and we can help you selling it. We can help you developing it. We can help you funding it. And this is what we do today.
Wow. I didn't realize you were doing so much stuff. You got this note buying thing, and you got a website for that thing too? What's that?
Oh, we do all of that through the landpilot.com, right? We do that right now for the partners where we sell stuff too, but yeah, it's an interesting thing, man. Like I got introduced to the concept of private money, and it's still like, for me, like Alice in Wonderland, sometimes doing business in the US, right? Everybody says it's so regulated and restricted. Hey, you have never done business in Europe before, right? So then you know what regulations and restrictions are. And yeah, we funnel in the moment everything through the landpilot.com. We have a portal there. You can log in, you can submit your deals, or hit me up, right? Robin at onlinelandmarket.com, where you have notes to sell or hard money loans to sell. I have personally a network of 250 private money lenders I work frequently with, where we funnel deals from all sides, just to get it rolling. Because I feel, especially in this market, hard money is like, and owner financing as exit strategy is like a must.
Totally. Well, we're going to get into all that. I'm really curious to hear about that. So focusing on the sales side of things with the online land market. So what gave you the idea to start focusing on this and start doing this on behalf of other land investors? Like when or why did that become a thing you decided to go after?
It came out of the history, right? So I told a little bit about the amount of deals we did. And like, you know, I focused pretty early in like acquiring packages, because I don't like the acquisition game of land. Let me be honest about that. I don't like talking to hundreds of sellers and getting that one deal out of them. I said, why don't we just talk to one that has like a lot of lots and find out this? So this is how I learned about private money. The first package deal I did was 144 lots in 24 counties in Florida.
From one person?
From one person, with one lender involved.
You said you bought this from a lender?
No, I had a lender involved who borrowed me the money for that transaction. It was Christmas 2021. I was sitting at my parents' house, typing comps, making comps on 144 lot across the state. They were like everywhere. And there was everything from $5,000 lots to like $500,000 lots in there. But that guy just wanted to get rid of it. And I thought, okay, that makes sense, right? Yeah, but the thing is, like, this whole transaction, like I think I bought it for 300 and I was estimating to sell it off for 1.8, 1.9. So I thought it was a great deal. I ended up selling it for 3 million, selling off it for 3 million on the peak of the market, right? So
that's amazing.
Yeah, but you know, the thing is, how do I get there? Now you buy 144 lots. There is no buyer for 144 lots in a package. There are not that many mad people like I who take down the portfolio like this. So you can just wholesale that, right? So I needed to build a reliable sales process. I needed to build something like, how do you do due diligence on a scale, like on 144 lots? Because every day they're not in the market, right? And they're not there. How do you create listings? How do you list them, right? You can't like just go to land.com and buy a 144 lot land.com subscription, right? Because it's like just expensive, right? I hired a good CMO with a lot of experience with online marketing, and we're a sales team and realtors. And we built out this process really to do dispositions on a scale. So we started selling and people were seeing it. So then in that year, like a lot of people were like, how do you do so many deals? Oh, I do this and this and this. And can you sell my land for me? I said, yeah, straight over. We do 50-50 profit split. We did 65 JVs that year. And I don't like JVs. I mean, it depends who you're working with, but like I had these discussions. The people made like $50,000 of profit and they hold up the closing process because the FedEx receipt of $21.43 was not part of the calculation. Right. And so I said, okay, hey, I like that because obviously there's a need in the market that people don't want to do dispositions, don't want to just rely on realtors, right? They want to get a whole process done. They don't even want to take care of anything. Let's build a product out of that. And that was early 2023. So we started like formatting like the land pilot. And what it is like we take wholesale deals, lots you own, and just sell it for you on a commission base, like more or less, right? This is the business model behind that. And it came out of this necessity that I needed to sell off packages, right? And test a lot around that.
I got like a million questions right now. I'm going to try to get through as many as I can. So I heard you say earlier something about doing a 50-50 split on the process, but then I just heard you say it's sold on a commission basis. So like, how do you make money? Like, how much do you get paid? What does it cost the operator to use you to sell their property?
We started on a JV. It's too hard to maintain when you do hundreds of transactions, right? You just have 3 like people just calculating deals. And today we, with a little upfront fee, right, which generally covers a couple of things we do in the process, right? Because when I take over a property, there are like 2-3 things which are not negotiable. And for wholesale deal, we pull a title commitment, not just a title search. We pull a full commitment. I want to know, as that guy who sells the property, does it sell tomorrow? Right? Like what happens when I sell tomorrow? Because I personally have been in a situation when you wholesale, sit on the closing table, you can't clear AB, everybody is mad at you, you don't make any money, you get frustrated and all that, right? So this is what we do for our clients. Second thing is drone footage. Drone footage just like cutted our days on market by half, like real property footage, right? Like it's crazy what that did. So there's a little upfront fee, and then we get a commission on the closing table, which is anything between 12 and 20% of the sales price, but we pay the realtor out of that, right? Like, so I always say, take that, what you would pay to a realtor anyway, double it, and that's what you pay to us.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of how you're paying for this drone footage or listing fees, wherever you list it for sale, is that what the upfront fee is for?
Yeah, the upfront fee is around $600, right? It varies a little bit. With a mini subscription, which is $149 a month, right? But we do, for example, a daily comps call. Like our clients can come daily with us and comp their properties. Like we do that in front of them, right? Because I think that's like what was one of the major issues we're facing. We got a bunch of lots that we couldn't sell because the comps were not run right? There's a little bit of service around that because we just want to sell good deals because we make our money in the back end, right? So I'm an investor on the deal and the moment where I take it because I get my money when we close.
Yeah. So this is a huge topic to spend a little bit of time on. So this issue of how you comp properties, and even like looking back at that package of 100 plus properties you bought for $300,000, the ability to comp properties at all and get even close to an accurate number on that. How do you do that? Like, what is your process? Because this has everything to do with like, how much should you offer to buy the thing? And how do you plan out your profit and all this stuff? If you don't have a reliable way to do that, which can be a tricky thing with land, you can be in big trouble. So what is your reliable method? And yeah, just tell me about that.
I agree 100% with you. I always say the sale starts with the comps we are on in the beginning. To be honest, we do it manually. I have a team of 2 people that comp properties like every day, and I train them every day. And I do it personally. I don't know on how many properties I looked in my career meanwhile, but it's probably a 5-figure number. It's tough and tricky, especially when you don't know the area, right? Like when you would send me a deal, I don't know, I think you're somewhere in the north, right? Like say you're in Michigan and you're in like whatever county, and I don't know that county, right? You can go with averages and not what you see. And I think the tricky thing about land listing and the comping process is you just have 2 data points compared to houses, right? In houses, you know, it's that year, it has been remodeled that time. So you have 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, you have this veranda, you have this garage, you have like blah, 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 blah. In land, you have literally 2 data points. The one is acreage, the second one is price. And the rest of the information you need to get out of the listing text and out of the pictures. right? Because in the pictures, you see other utilities. You maybe see like what has been done in the past. So it's pretty weak. But normally what we do is we go in that area, we look for comparable comps from our side, like 4 for sold comps and 3 for sale comps to build pricing scenarios where we see, okay, what is the trend in that area? Second, we look into the market too, like how many are listed, how many sold in the past 12 months, 6 months, 90 days, break that down, how it's the market developed. This is what we do on our end, right? For every property when we onboard it. And we have a second comps confirmation when we engage the realtor, right? Like for all of our clients, we engage with the local realtor. We have like a huge process in place to win these realtors, qualify them, and they always will have experience in land. And then we ask them for their opinion, right? Because they are the local experts. They're the people with feet on the ground, right? But the better you comp, the more money you will make on the deal, the better you will make offers. You will know your boundaries, what you can make on offers, right? And not be in there. And interesting thing, what we've seen throughout this year was, like everything you list today, probably your comps are half a year old because you made that offer half a year ago. But like half a year later now, we see a double in days on market. That's what's happened in the last year. Double in days on market across the country, 20% price decreases across the country, right? Run your comps. I guess that's like the biggest thing I can tell you. Run your comps today before you start any listing activities and be really specific. Spend some time. And what I see a lot with land investors, I don't know if you see that too. They do deals everywhere, right? They do one here, one there. I still do until today deals in like 6 or 7 counties, right? Like 5 of them are in Florida, 2 are in Texas, and I've been there. I know every road, I know every subdivision. So when you send me something, I will know what's going on there, right? So I think that's the second tip. Like when you have good areas, get deep, go deep, learn to know, spend some time there, meet some realtors, some builders and all that, that you know how is your area working, right?
So like when you go through your first round or two of looking for these comps, the sold comps and the listed comps and all that stuff, but then you end up talking to a realtor, and it sounds like that's kind of the real test to be like, how close were we based on what they said? What if you find a realtor and you don't agree with what they're saying? You ascertain that, yeah, they don't know what they're talking about. We trust our comps more. Or maybe a better question is like, in the end, when you go full circle and these things actually sell, how often do you end up being wrong, either too high or too low with your valuation?
Meanwhile, we're pretty good at that. I think we have like a over 90% success rate. I mean, we talk maybe about a 10, 15% like difference, which is normal, right? I mean, in the beginning, that was a huge deal, right? Because we just relied on the land investors, right? This is like what you learn when you start selling for other people is you have a complete different underwriting than they have. And I see that a lot of people just throw whatever contract they have out there, or they buy the property blind and then sit on something which is a liability and not an asset, right? And this is why I can just everybody encourage is like really spend some time on your research before you list something. Because no matter if you do listing with us or you do it by yourself, you start spending time. It costs you money, right? You start listing it. It costs you money, right? And all the hope you destroy when you get to the closing table or when you don't generate leads and then you need to reduce pricing. This is like the most important thing that you know from the beginning on, what's my property worth, and dive into it. And like you said, it's a weak topic. There's no 100% reliable data. You can just throw it out there and then see like how's the market reacting on your pricing for this property, right?
Yeah. So when you get a property, I don't know, let's just hypothetically say it's 10 acres. It's got really unique characteristics. Maybe it's like on a hill next to a lake with nice road access. And like there is literally nothing like that in a 10-mile radius. Like it just doesn't exist. It's one of a kind. How do you go back into that and figure out what a real market value is? Like when there are no comps, do you just skip forward to the realtor and just hope that they're right?
We do our first round of comps and we rely on that before we take over a deal. Like I said, as soon as I start marketing, I put money in that deal personally, right? Like when you give me a lot, I sell it for you. And then when we submit it, I burn all the money because it's $600 just for drone footage. It's gone, right? Like, so when we see, hey, the comps are not working out, then we pass. When we see unique features like water, like view, we prove all of that in due diligence. We look on FOCO, right? We look on features in the area, like what's unique about this property, right? This is what our due diligence team does already, because they give with the due diligence a framework to our marketing team, how they market. Then we rely on the realtor, right? And it depends on the price point too. Like when it's a $15,000 property, right? We just say, you know what, like there's not enough spread, like, let's go away. But when it's $150,000, $200,000 property, it's a nice profit for our partner, nice money we make too, right? So we dig a little bit deeper, we put some more effort. But I think the 100% like security of what's going on, you get it in that moment where you hit the market and see what the market gets back, because the property will sell for three things, right? It's when the price matches the condition of the property and the demand in the market. And most of the time when you don't have the price right, then you have a condition issue or a demand issue, right? And this is what you need to solve.
Yeah, gotcha. So are there ever times when you don't hire a realtor? Or is it just across the board every time? There will always be a realtor involved.
We don't do it for properties under $10,000 because it's not worth it to sell these properties through their channels and find a realtor. But over $10,000, $12,000, so $10,000 is our like limit to the bottom. But over that, you always need to see it like this. A realtor is two things, right? It's a marketing and a sales channel. So you have somebody with feet on the ground that knows the local environment, that has buyers, that has the MLS, right? When you have a good realtor with good buyers list, but let's be honest, that's 0.001% of that realtors really know their stuff, and especially in land. So when you have a good realtor, you just have like a lot of advantages. When you're in the land business, you want to turn fast, no matter if you wholesale or if you buy, because when you sit on inventory, it costs you money. So it's about bringing your days on markets down. And with the realtor, you can, even your online leads, you need to qualify them. You need to generate them. And when they're qualified, you match them with your realtor. And what other conversation is that you have like, hey, Seth, the property is beautiful. Here, I send you a spreadsheet. There is a Google Maps link. Just go out there on the weekend with your wife, where you can say, hey, Seth, no big deal. Meet my buddy, Kevin. He's our local realtor on the property Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Complete different traffic, right? Like you're not suddenly the wholesaler anymore, like have no trust and all that, right? You have somebody there, and the realtor is happy too, right? When you structure the marketing around them. So I think it's a big plus to hire them. Where they struggle with this owner financing, there's a lot of explanation around that you need to do with them. But other than that, I would say that's my first recommendation, by the way. When you market, you probably hire a realtor and spend that time on finding them, because it's a sales and a marketing channel at the same time.
Yeah, that's another good tangent to this whole conversation of value and selling, that kind of thing, because a realtor plays just a crucial role, not only in understanding the possible value, but also like getting the thing sold and all this stuff. And I'm sure with all the realtors you've worked with, you've probably encountered your share of bad realtors, right? I mean, that's just inevitably going to happen. I guess in order to find a good realtor, or when they turn out being bad and you look back on it, what ends up being the thing that you could have caught to tell, okay, they're not a good realtor. Like I shouldn't hire them. In hindsight, it's obvious, but I didn't realize it back then. Is there any like red flags you look for to know that you're getting a bad one or a good one?
I think the most important thing is, and probably you have heard that a lot, right? That they answer the phone when you call them or reply to you in a timely, reasonable manner, right? And other than that, we look for some experience and we ask them the question, can you reach that property in 24 hours when somebody wants to schedule an appointment with you? And we ask a little bit about their land background too, right? And we have, meanwhile, an internal realtor team that hires that realtors, right? Because they go as like an agent to an agent and speak as agents to agents, right? Like it's one lady, she just like gets that up. And she knows how agents think, how they are, right? Like what they're looking for. She can have the conversations with the brokers and all that, what's probably a hold up, right? This is all like things you need to think about. But generally, you find a realtor for every property when you did your homework on the AB end, right? The contract is the most important thing you need to have with your seller in place when you're a wholesaler, and that contract has EMD and closing dates, right? They want to have some money in there. And then it's just like, who doesn't find a realtor didn't search hard enough. Like we have a system meanwhile, but until we had that, we called 90 realtors on average for each property until we found the right one.
Yeah. Wow. how long do you have to commit to these realtors? Like, is it 6 months, or do you have any wiggle room to get out of that sooner? Or
Yeah, we have 6 months, right? And we always have a cancellation policy when our property gets canceled, right? Like with our partners, then it gets canceled. Meanwhile, we're so confident. We just like put a clause. We did that in the beginning. We put a clause in there like that we can cancel any time for non-performance. There was a certain amount of leads not hit. I think that was the first version. We just put it on the leads, and after that, I said, you know what? We need to provide leads for the realtor that are qualified, that they have fun. Because when you run the math, let's say it's a $50,000 land transaction. Let's say you pay 10% in commission to your agent, right? That's a sales agent. Now there's the whole MA regulations, meanwhile, which like complicates the game even more. We were a niche with land wholesaling or land selling before already. Now it gets even harder because the old rule was like the seller agent pays the buyer's agent. A lot of realtors still do that, right? So run the math, $50,000, 10%, right? It's $5,000. Now he needs to share his $5,000 with the other agent, $2,500. Now they need to give maybe, let's say, 40% of that to the broker, right? So that's $1,000. So they end up with $1,500 in their pocket on these transactions. With the same amount of work they would have done with a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 house. And this is how you need to think, I think, when you engage realtors. How can I make their life easier? How can I make them want to engage with me, right? How can I serve them? And I think that anyway is something you should always do. And this is what we have, I think, really good, meanwhile, like really providing them with value, right? We prepare all the listings for them. We give them everything they need. We do the due diligence. We give them the financing terms. We provide them with leads. Right, we warm other realtors in that area for them and say, hey, that's our agent. Here's a property for sale. We give them emails for their buyers list they can send, right? So that for them, it's just plugging in, click and play, right? Waiting until the phone rings because everything else is prepared and they just can really concentrate on one thing, what they're there for, to meet sellers on the property and sign contracts. This is how you need to see that.
Yeah, totally. How often does it happen where an operator brings a deal to you and they're like, I've got this property, it needs to sell for this price. And it's either a little off or it's way off. Do you like go ahead and list it at that price? Or do you say, no, we're not going to do that. If you're going to list it with us, you have to lower it to this.
Yeah.
The latter?
Yeah. So we give the recommendation. That's also like when we onboard that property, we run a comps check. And when we check the comps and we find it off, we play it back. Right? Say, hey, we can't do it. Lower the price, renegotiate with the seller, do whatever, but we can't list it. Because like I said, I put money in that deal in the moment where I onboard it. So we can put a price breaking point on there. And that's what it is. And you can be grateful when you find out at this point, right? Because you don't spend any hours, dollars, and hope anymore on that property where you're just like, we made a mistake from comps, which is totally fine. That happened to all of us, right?
Yeah. No. You mentioned seller financing a little bit earlier and getting realtors to work with that. I guess a couple of questions here. The first thing is, how important is it that the operator is willing to sell with seller financing? Like, how big of a deal is that? Does it increase the speed to sell by 2 times or something? Or just their willingness to go there? Is that a big deal?
Yeah.
If they're not willing to do that, you'll still do it, right?
Yeah, we would still do it, but we encourage them to do it because through the network we have in the backend, through our funding sources, we buy notes on the closing table, right? And in the end, it's just a numbers game. So first of all, you, in the moment, like properties under $50,000 sell 80% on owner financing. So when you don't offer owner financing, like you just like have an 80% smaller buyer's pool.
Yeah, you said that's $50,000 in them?
Under 50,000, right? And then it gets like 50 to 150. You have like around like 50% of the transactions. Over that, like over 150, most of that is cash, right? Let's be honest, right? Like these are hunting properties, recreational tracks, luxury tracks, like for luxury properties. But when you're in the range, properties up to 150, it's a must to offer owner financing. Everybody's talking about realtors and like title companies. You need your team. I think in today's market, you need a team of hard money lenders and note buyers. And to be honest, when you create notes that make 30 and 15% ROI a year, I guess there are a bunch of people in your network that this is where I would ask first, that would take over that notes and get paid every month, right? You need a money team too in this market, right? And for our clients, we can solve that through the network I have and through our land fund. That's a secret sauce, just to bring your turnaround times down and sell it on time, right?
Yeah. And on that whole note, so when we say seller financing, what are we talking about? Does this mean nothing down, like payments over 10 years? Or is it like 50% down, 12% interest? Like when you hear seller financing, what are the numbers that pop into your head in terms of what those terms are supposed to be?
Okay. Everything up to 10, 12,000. You want to have $99 down, like nothing down, and you want to structure your payment around $250 a month. People financing that land, like they are in need of something. They don't have huge down payments and all that, right? And you go for a land contract for deed, because it's easy for you to foreclose on. You collect the payments, they default, you just market it again, right? It's a nice money. Man, I hold over 200 of these little notes, and they're nice, right? Because they just cash flow you every month. When they default, you just send a termination letter and you market it again and sell it to the next person.
I'm actually curious, on those smaller deals, what percentage of those are sold with cash? Because I know some land investors who, if it's below 20 grand or 25 grand, like they're not even going to consider seller financing. Like you shouldn't be buying land if you need seller financing for that. Like they take that approach. So are there a lot of cash buyers for those cheaper properties?
At 10, 12,000, I tell you they sell to 90% on terms. It's ridiculous. I don't know why, right? Because the people come in, and I see a lot of window shoppers buying these properties, right? The nature of an owner financing sell is that you want to have in your contracts clauses or notes clauses that you can just use it as rural vacant land, that people can't change anything without written permission. So then who are the buyers of this, right? These are people that want to invest in that area, right? However you know that. There are people that that maybe want to relocate there one day, or people that just shop around and say, oh, I can own a piece of land for $99 and $200 a month for 10 years. Nice, let me do that. Right? But that's what we figured out. It's $99 down, around $200 more or less. That's what everybody can afford, right? And we're charging interest rates around 15%, no matter what state it is. We never got sued. I produced hundreds and hundreds of notes so far. So just be like that, because somebody who's defaulting on a $10,000 land will not sue you because he doesn't have $200 for a payment. So he will not have any money for an attorney, right? But over that, how we structure it, 15,000 plus, you get an acceptance problems with the contract for deeds and land contracts, right? People want to have ownership. And how we normally structure that is mortgage and note, or deed of trust and note, depending on the state, right? When you want to work with note buyers on these deals, you want to have 20% down. That's what they're looking for, right? You want to have any kind of a double-digit return. I do 15%, but it could be 12 or 11, because the note buyer doesn't look so much on the interest rate every year. They look how much do they buy your note discounted that they reach their ROI they want to make, right? So 20% down, double-digit interest, and you always want to have a loan servicing fee included, right? Anything between $35 and $45 in your paperwork, because a professional note buyer will offload their papers to a note service. When you hold the note by yourself, by the way, that's great. When you do $45 a month, it's $45 in your pocket for setting up your landloans.com or whatever that is, right?
Yeah. The interesting thing about that, so I interviewed Pat Porter. He's a pretty well-known land real estate agent in Louisiana and works in several states. And we got into this issue of seller financing and how it's hard to get bank financing for land. And he was like, what are you talking about? 90% of our buyers get bank financing. And it was just totally backwards from everything I'd ever heard. I was like, what? But apparently, a lot of banks will lend on that higher value stuff, whether it's hunting land or farmland. It probably, I'm sure, depends on the uses and the borrower and their financial well-being and all that stuff. And he didn't tell me this, but I'm half wondering if he has a bunch of different bankers in his back pocket where it's hey, you need cash? Talk to this banker. They lend on land. I almost wonder if that might make sense for you to do. Get a bunch of these bankers that you know are going to lend on land just to make it easy, get people's cash.
Yeah, it makes sense. But as soon as you get into that thing, you have an underwriting problem, right? Somebody financing a $20,000 property with you will probably not have the credit score, nor the bank history, nor the job, nor any kind of financial statements that will allow him to take $20,000 out, right?
Yeah, and I think with Pat, a lot of his properties are the higher end, like probably 50 grand and over range. So like, I mean, that's his frame of context when he's saying that kind of thing. I don't want to speak for Pat. Pat, if you're listening to this, sorry if I'm getting this wrong, but I believe that's where he was coming from. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's available, like, especially there are smaller credit unions to do that. Like, we're working on a project right now. It's 45 acres here in Texas, on a lake, and the local bank will finance it, right? But hey, you need to go through a loan approval process. You need to bring your financial statements. You need to have like somebody personal guaranteeing the loan, right? It's just like a huge headache. And for the buyer, I think the great thing is when you structure your own financing, we don't underwrite the buyer, we underwrite the property. This is how I look on that. The buyer, like when you have 20% down, you already have 20% equity in that deal. Does that make sense? Then when you sell the note on a little discount, then you have like 35% equity in that deal when that buyer defaults. Like we work on all the paperwork with our buyers most of the time with the deed in lieu. That means in case they default, you don't need to go through a foreclosure process, right? They sign that with closing. And when they're like, you define in the note, hey, when you're 3 months behind, we can execute that and we get control over the property. And suddenly when it's $100,000 property, you're sitting on, you bought it maybe for 65, the note, right? So as a note investor now, I have control for $65,000 over a $100,000 asset. So I will get my money back, right? But as a land investor, like this 20 and then being prepared a little bit, discounting the note, right? So I always say, put your own financing price a little higher than the cash price. This is how we advertise a lot of stuff. Hey, we sell it for $100,000 with 20% down in this other monthly terms, or get a 20% cash discount and buy it for 80.
Yeah. My friend Peter Nukasani, I think you might know him. So he does a very similar thing where he buys lots of land from wholesalers, usually smaller, cheaper stuff, and sells it with owner financing. And there's always two prices on his listings. A common thing that I saw on his website is when you buy with seller financing, the price is basically twice as much when you consider all the interest, all the payments, all this stuff. And if you buy it for cash, it's half of what it ends up being for the owner financing version. So
yeah, and when you're structuring the notes right? Like I personally, I just hold the small notes. I sell all of the big ones to have cash flow in the company. I mean, what we do all costs money. And when you structure the deal right? And you have this $100,000 and you would sell it cash for 80, you buy it for 50. It's almost the same, right? Like when you sell that note, let's say for $65,000 or something like that, instead of $80,000, right? Like you have $85,000 you receive in cash, a little bit more closing costs, but often the times it ends up the same or leaving a little bit more than when you would have made a cash sale, right? You have more buyers. It makes more sense. Everybody is happy. And I love this win-win situations, right? That are created out of this, right?
Yeah, totally. So looking at your website here, again, onlinelandmarket.com. So like, I see you have listings here, but you're also listing this with realtors. So like, do you always make a practice of listing stuff there along with what the realtor does? Or are these just the ones that you don't use realtors for?
We do both. So when you onboard a property, right, like we do all the underwriting. We talked about that a lot, like the comms, the title commitment, we check your contract too, right? Because we just figure it out like, hey, a lot of the contracts we receive are just crap. We do due diligence, and in the end, we order the drone footage and we prepare like 5 types of listings, right? And there's like a listing for the MLS and one for Facebook Marketplace and one for our website and one for land.com. And, because we just split tested a lot, what's working, what's not. When do you, like Facebook Marketplace, you need to list in a certain way that you don't get banned permanently. Land.com, we made a project with them. We have a pretty big subscription with them, and like our leads dropped by 50%. And then we made a project with them to what lists fast, right? Like, how can you do that? We start changing images and like looking like how many leads are generated. And out of that, we doubled the amount of leads in the end, right? So it's just 5 types of listing images we create. And then, man, it's just a spread. I'm a big believer in omnichannel marketing. It's like we find the realtor, right? So we have the MLS solved. We have the local buyers list solved. We listed on land.com is for me like one of the strongest lead bringers in the industry right now. A lot of people are like unhappy with it or whatever. They just changed their algorithm like Google and Facebook, right? So when they change their algorithm, then you need to do something. We do, I think, landflip.com, landsearch.com. We list it on our own website. We run social media ads on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We list it on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We do YouTube. We do neighborhood marketing. We do cash buyers list marketing.
You send neighbor letters? Is it like a standard thing you always do?
Neighbor letters, yeah.
So I guess if you end up finding the buyer and selling these things and a realtor's involved, you end up paying that realtor's commission regardless of who ended up finding the buyer, right?
Yeah. So here's the deal with that. Like we do all these amazing things. We do email marketing, like everything you would do, we do it. We do Facebook Marketplace, like all that stuff, right? And now we have a gigantic funnel. We're out there in the world, right? And all these people come in. What I see people doing now, they drop off all these leads to a realtor. But all this online leads you generate, like no realtor will deal with that. They will not call the people. Online leads, you need to engage them in 15 minutes. Otherwise, they're dead, right? Like this is statistics week. 85% less is the chance that you ever reach somebody after 15 minutes. So that means when you spend $10,000 in marketing and you don't crack your 15 minutes, you have like $8,500, which are just gone, right? So we take all these inbound leads, we qualify them on time. We have an in-house sales team. And now here are a couple of different scenarios, right? We reach out. It's most of the time an appointment setter that qualifies the buyer. Meanwhile, it's an AI bot that qualifies the buyers, right? So when they're qualified, they get an appointment schedule with our sales rep. And the sales rep then goes deeper into that, right? Like, hey, blah, 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 blah. And if they really want to buy the property, our sales rep takes that hot lead that's qualified, that knows everything already, and schedules an appointment for the realtor. So he funnels that lead to the realtor that meets the people on site and that then closes, right? Or sometimes they sell it on the phone too, right? And sometimes the realtor sells it through his sources. So we have 3 scenarios. In all scenarios, we always pay the realtor, right? Like even when we sell it on the phone, they still get a commission. It's a little bit lower than when they are involved, but when we sell it on the phone, because they had work. And when you always give them something, they did work in between. That they didn't sell it, right, is just like not their fault, but you want to have them as part of your team. Because with the next sale, it will need a realtor, right? And again.
That's true. Quick question. I appreciate you talking about that, engaging the buyer within 15 minutes. I think that's a really important point for a lot of people to understand. When you say engage the buyer, what does engage mean? Is that just like replying to their message, or is it mean a phone call or an email or just something to show that you're alive?
It's both. You want to actually start a conversation. This is what the engagement means. I'm happy you clarified that. So, of course, when somebody is scrolling 2 a.m. Saturday nights, you will not call them because probably he lies on the bed next to his wife or the wife lies next to her husband or whatever it is. You don't want to call them. So in after hours, we have like a text message chat bot, which is like an intelligent AI, whatever bot, right? And he starts the conversations to qualify them with the goal to schedule an appointment. If it's in normal times, daytimes, like 9 to 7, I think it's in the moment, or 9 to 8, we just call them right away in this 15 minutes.
This is another fascinating thing, this conversational AI bot that qualifies the buyers. So is this a bot that you created? And how does this work? Does it text them, or is it hooked up to Facebook Messenger, or tell me more? I want to know about that.
Okay. We can have a deep dive about AI right now, but I'm the wrong person to talk about that. But how it technically works, right? In the end, AI is about prompting, right? This is what we know. You need to have prompts for everything, that for ChatGPT. And in the same way, you can build a prompt for a conversational AI tool, right? That you can teach things like what to ask, how to reply, where to find things, connect them with your database. Our AI bot can talk with our database. So when you call in, they can scan the database and you give them a couple of keywords. Hey, I'm looking for this 2 acres in Lehigh Acres, Florida. It can identify that. It's a script in the back end, right? It's a script you would give your appointment sitter in a really advanced way. And then you just have the software executing that. And there are different ones. I think we're using Blend AI right now for that purpose. And, the interesting thing is, I was just thinking, okay, well, it's just a script. Why don't we give the script a text message bot too? That is talking like the voice bot, just as a texter.
Does this only work with texting, or does it work with like literally any written medium? Like if somebody sends an email, will it reply to the email? Like where does it not work, I guess?
It's texting and calls, right? So it's like conversational AI means for me, like it calls you. And to be honest, it's crazy amazing. Like,
so it calls you with like an audible voice that you hear?
An actual voice. It's like a voice calling you. And to be honest, the technology so far, people don't even realize. It's like so fluent and so fast and so nice. Like people don't even realize that they're talking to an AI right now. Right. And it's an inbound call. So you don't have any compliance issues, right? Like it's an inbound lead. It's an opted in lead. So you call them, say, hey, I'm your smart assistant, Sophia. And like, I just want to talk to you, inquired for this and this property. It's like your appointment setter calling somebody, right? Like your appointment setter texting somebody, your VA doing that. But I mean, this AI, you teach it once and it's working 24/7, and then you can script again the calls and let's just like go through that. And that do smarter people than I do. But I would spend my money there because like this AI developers, you can build something out like this for $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. But when you spend $5,000, $6,000 in marketing, maybe a month, right? Like it's the thing you can do. And you can also integrate that on the acquisition side, right? This is what we do too. Just like to be fast of service, right?
So is this bot, is it effectively just getting some standard questions answered just to make sure that the buyer fits a certain profile, like whatever the questions would be, but they just want to make sure that you're talking to a real legit buyer who actually can do something?
Yeah. I think we ask for money. We ask like, hey, when are you able to visit the property? Can you go there? Like, why are you buying that property? It's like 5 questions I think they try to get out of there. And when that are all green, they schedule automatically. They're linked with the calendar of the sales rep and they put down an appointment on the calendar. It's pretty amazing, man. It's like when they show me that, I was like, are you kidding me? That's crazy, right?
I remember hearing a lot about this like a year ago, and then it just kind of stopped. And I think it's because what is it, the TCPA or whatever the government agency is, says that you can't use this for cold calling, but you're right. Like this isn't cold calling. This is somebody who reached out to you first. So like, and I don't know what the laws are. Don't quote me on that, but it sounds like there's definitely a place for this.
You don't hear about that anymore because nobody's talking about dispositions in land. That's like an industry problem, I think, right? Like everyone's talking about acquisition and what you can do, how you can get more deals. And but like nobody's doing, what do you need to do to the back end? There's not, like I was with Kendall, you know, Kendall too, right? It was Kendall on the podcast and said, Robin, I never thought about putting a budget on dispositions, like, and that's what it is, right? You need to budget dispositions. You need to think about that. And like, we have opted in leads we interact with. It's warm leads. People gave the consent that we can contact them because they are inquired for one of the properties we're selling. So like, there's no big deal. Compliance wise, it's no big issue, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. Acquisitions has been the talk that everybody's getting after, but I think that may be changing. At least the past couple of land events I've been at, dispositions is where people are feeling the pain the most, at least right now in this point in time. I think it's just been so easy for so long that when there's even the slightest bit of slowdown, people are like, whoa, you know, the sky is falling. Whereas like when I got into land, like selling was the hardest thing ever back in 2009. Like it was the norm for stuff to sit on the market for 9+ months. So I'm totally comfortable with it. But a lot of people who got into this in 2020 and after, it's like a new thing for them. So
I think so. Yeah.
I am curious, how often does it happen where like a property just won't sell when you're listing it? And like, what do you do? Like maybe it's got some weird problem like no access or wetlands, or there's like some obvious problem with it. Do you just kind of go back to the operator and say, sorry, it's been 6 months, we can't do it, you're on your own? Do you just kind of let them re-up and list it for as long as possible? Or how do you handle those issues when properties sell really slowly?
We filtered that before. You mentioned 2 obvious reasons. Wetlands, no access. When we see that, we stay away from it. Like we don't list it because it's so hard to sell it. I think this is why I want to encourage everybody. When you buy a piece of land, when you acquire it, when you have it, look at as a buyer on that, right? Like we were looking this morning, we run every day a comps call, my name in the morning when people ring the deals, right? And I pull like that and I run them, right? So I pulled it up and I look at this, it's Michigan, right? Like it's like beautiful property on the first side, like beautiful trees, 5 acres, like out of that what you want. I hit like on Land ID, the wetlands filter, it's 90% wetlands. I said, you know what? I would stay away from it. Like, look here where they build houses. Everywhere it's high and dry, but nowhere where it's wetlands. The only chance you really have is to make a quick shot on the neighbors and see if they want to buy it. But other than that, that's not a deal, right? Same for road access, right? I mean, you can get road access. You can get through easements. I'm like right now in the deal in Florida. We're in that for 2.5 years because the court appointments are like so hard to get and all that, right? I just stay away from that, and so that we do a really good underwriting with the comps in the back and the front end. I mean, properties don't close most of the time because the comps are not right? You have a condition issue, which we find out pretty soon, right? Because we have always somebody walking the property in our due diligence process too. And the third thing is title issues. And we solve all that things pretty well up front. So like in the beginning, it happened a lot. And then we learned, right, and evolved for our customers because you and me both want deals that sell.
Yeah. So you're doing like a title search on properties before you list them, or how do you know about these title issues?
Title commitment. So we go to actually a title company and say, hey, I want to close on the property. Just get me a title commitment. When I'll close tomorrow with you, what will be on there? What do we need to solve? I mean, land titles, you know that probably better than anybody else. Like it was before that, I think 2 out of 10, which have non-solvable title issues. Sometimes they are solvable, but they're economically not solvable. Does that make sense? It doesn't make money-wise sense, right?
So you basically just preemptively get that title commitment. Like you're not actually going to close, but you're just like, hey, when this sells in 6 months, we're going to go with you, giving the title commitment now. And then that's how you can see it without paying anything up front, right?
Yeah, that's it, right? That's part in the fee we charged up front, right? Like when that falls out, like we cover that from there. But then right? And don't burn money on the way, right? That's how you always need to see that. Always when you touch things, you burn money, right? And we want to prevent our partners from burning money because we burn money with them. That's just like the thing, right?
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned a while back that like you post videos on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and all this stuff. And this idea of video, how important is video? What if you could get only a video or only pictures? I know it's a ridiculous question because that would never happen, but just trying to gauge like which do you think is more important and how big of a role does video play these days in selling land?
That's a hard question. We never made a test on that. Probably should do that. I just think, like marketing needs to be emotional. You're a marketer too, right? You want to pick people by their emotions. Or you can show a video, like it's moving pictures. You can show around, you can put some music on that. So because, with land, you don't have this like personal attachment like with houses. Like we're closing on a house this Friday, right? We have a personal attachment. We're going to live there. We're going to raise our daughter there, right? Like with a piece of land, there is not. So you need to bring that kind of emotion somehow in there, right? It's attention seeking. I don't know if we ever directly sold something through their videos, but the people come in your universe. You make them attentive to yourself, right? You see, oh, that guy has nice lots. Oh, I want to have a look. Oh, new videos. Oh, I'm looking in that area. Like, look, that lot looks nice. And it's always about competition too. When you do better stuff than your competition, who do they trust more, right? I'm in a mastermind, and there some of the biggest marketing agencies out of the US is there. And people have a trust problem nowadays, right? They don't trust media anymore. So you need to even do more that they trust you. And with the video, with moving pictures, with real footage of the property, you solve that trust issue because suddenly you're not like a voice on the phone, right? We're doing a test with our sales team right now that we schedule out Zoom calls for them with the buyers. And it's running for a week now, and a lot of people like it, right? Like, hey, let's hop on a call real quick. Like, I can show you around the property on the screen and we can see each other. It's a completely different level of trust. It's not just a voice calling you on the phone. You don't have a face, right? Yeah, it's about that. We think a lot of that about building trust with the buyers, right? And the video is a great way of doing it.
Yeah, that would be interesting if you can ever set up some kind of tracking to figure out, and maybe you already have some insight in this, but like when you consider, okay, I've got this listing, we're posting on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and land.com and Facebook Marketplace and then the MLS and then this and that and on it goes. If you could only list in one of those places besides the MLS, like what would that one place be? Like, what do you get the most bang for your buck?
It depends on the property type. Let me say it like this, but the lead sources that make the strongest difference are land.com and Facebook Marketplace. It shifted a lot, right? Last year, we sold like 65% of our properties with the realtor in the end, coming through a source from the realtor. This year it shifted like in the other way around. It's like we sell 70% directly, 30% through the realtors. And then in the past 2 months, we shifted the realtor model a little bit, provided them with more leads, do more advertising for them. So it seems like when I look end of December, it will be again a 50-50. But when we now look on this like 70%, right, it was like, I looked on there once a quarter, right? Because I always want to see a trend, right? From that transaction that sold, actually, it was 35% from land.com, 30% from Facebook Marketplace leads, and the other 30% from everything else, right? Like, I mean, buyers lists are pretty important because sometimes you funnel somebody from land.com for that property and they're like in your email marketing, and then they reach out in half a year, right? That's a statistic we have, like from leads coming from other sources. They stick with us half a year and then they buy. But like land.com and Facebook Marketplace are the strongest sources for leads right now. What we see.
Do you list stuff on Land Search and Craigslist?
We do land search now since like 3 weeks, so I can't tell you anything about that. We don't do Craigslist. We made a test on that. On the bigger properties, it didn't work out in any way. On the smaller properties, it worked out a little bit, but the problem was just like too much work to maintain it, right? You need to make like hey, how much effort do I put? How much leads do I generate? And it was just not worth it.
Yeah, I know. Because part of me always, when I think through those kinds of questions, I always wonder like, well, maybe it's one of those things where the grass is greener where you water it, you know? So like, yeah, land.com is doing well because you're putting a lot into land.com, you know? That's why I asked the question. But a few minutes ago, you're talking about how you send more leads to your realtors or you advertise. Do you ever like pay to boost ads or like do paid ads on any platform?
We run like social media campaigns like Meta and Google ads, right? For our buyers lists, right? Like when we have a subdivision, we even like where you have 10, 12 lots in one area, we run a separate ad on them. But like the better way we found out is running your buyers list and then doing a really good email marketing, right, on them is like the better way of doing it, the more cost efficient way of doing that. I think the problem with Facebook Marketplace is it's not a reliable, scalable marketing source, right? Because they can just ban you any day. I mean, we met like last time on RJ's event, like the Land Investing Summit there. I talked like to a couple of guys and they run 15 computers with T-Mobile boxes and what do I know and VPNs and all that stuff. And we try to do that too. Meanwhile, run like an ambassador program, man. This is how we solve that, right? Like, I mean, we have a pretty good guideline what we can do on Facebook Marketplace and what not. And we just like find people that have Facebook Marketplaces that want to spend want to make a couple of extra bucks every month. And we pay them on a per lead basis and a little bit when we close on the property. That is our solution on that, right? I think it's 12 or 13 people right now that have Facebook Marketplace because when they get banned, it's sad for them. But I have a pipeline with the next Facebook Marketplace, right?
Yeah. Do you know what it is that's getting people banned?
Yeah. It's certain keywords, owner financing, everything with finance is like that. It's using the wrong pictures a lot. Like you don't want to have a lot of advertising. You want to have not more than 3 or 5 pictures is what we normally do. And it's original pictures. It's most of the time drone footage we try to use there, right? And we try to keep every account with not more than 3 to 5 land listings in the same time, right? And we rotate them too and take them out. Like the intention of Facebook Marketplace is that you and me sell our crap out of our garage, right? And this is how you need to sell your land there.
Do you ever post in buy, sell Facebook groups? So I've heard sometimes that can be even more effective than Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, we have like a team that's doing that too, right? It's VAs doing that. You can't automate it. It's like one person. It's pretty strong strategy too. You can't scale it that much too, right? Like, but when you're on yourself, like you work 1 market, 2, 3 markets, that's what I would do, man. This is what I did in the beginning, right? It's like really being in 1 market and you know the groups there. And you know, I was a lot in Tallahassee in that area of Florida. There's Tallahassee garage sale and yard sale and whatever, right?
Yeah. I am curious, what makes a good listing? And is there a difference between what makes a good listing on land.com versus Facebook? Like, is it just a copy and paste, same picture, same everything? Or if you see a terrible listing out there, what makes it terrible? There's probably a million different things, but What boxes do you have to check, or what does it need to look like for you to know, yes, this is as effective as we can make it?
I think real footage is the first thing, right? Like you see a lot of land listings that are like this stock pictures from ever. And when it's not like drone footage, right? You can always get somebody local, like walking the property, making some pictures, getting a good overview of the neighborhood, where it is, how it looks like, right? Access to the property, really important. People, when they go there, they need to know where it is. On land.com, for example, it's a lot of like real footage, beautiful things, like, like the flyovers and showing the neighborhoods that works there. You can't do that on Facebook, right? On Facebook, you want to have 3 to 5 simple images, show a little bit. It needs to look a little bit sketchy and unprofessional, right? Like, because you want to be an unprofessional reseller. Our website listing have like a lot of like, the surroundings, like different pins and all that, like what you know from normal land listing, a lot of advertising in the pictures too. But on land.com, that doesn't work. People don't like it that much, right? So you want to have more of this. Of course, you want to show the neighborhood a little bit, like, and where's the next Walmart and all that. But like, you don't want to have like on everything, hey, this is $100,000 property for $80,000 in cash. I want to try, you have seen this ads, right? Online.com, you don't want to be flashy. On your website, you probably want to be like on Facebook Marketplace, you don't want to be too flashy too, because they will ban you. Even if it works when you're flashy, you will generate more leads on Facebook Marketplace, right? I guess that's the question. It's a lot of testing what works for you, I guess, too. We still test all the time, right? But getting people an understanding of the property and where it is I think the most important thing, right?
I know one of the most annoying things for me when I'm trying to sell land is tire kickers, just like answering endless questions for people who like aren't serious. They're not going to do anything. Talking to them on the phone, it goes nowhere. How do you avoid these people? Or is there something you can say to get a buyer to commit to pulling the trigger? Or like, don't spend time in them until you know they're serious. And if so, like, how do you do that?
I think the strongest question you need to ask is, when are you able to visit the property? I need to see, okay, you're not qualified. Hey, I sent you the thing. Bye-bye. Go in my follow-up funnel, right? When people make an effort on visiting a land property, seeing a realtor on the property or whatever, then I think they're qualified. Also, like the question, hey, are you interested in an installment sale, or you want to buy on terms, or you want to buy cash? Could you make the down payment like tomorrow after you visited the property, right? So you want to ask, like, how's their financial thing, right? And how urgent is it? And are they willing to put some effort in? I think this is how you qualify really fast. And then you can say yes or no. And I mean, better you say no than yes to the wrong people, right?
Totally. Sometimes I'm selling properties to people who don't see it before they buy it. They're in some other state. Like, they're just kind of making some emotional decision to do it. So like, if I made them visit before talking more, like, that would kick out a qualified buyer. Is that always the right thing to ask? Or is there a different way you could phrase it? Or what do you think?
That's not black and white, I guess, right? Like, but what is black and white, right? You need to work with like statistics. Like, most of the time, like, the people will tell you, I can do it, I can't do it, right? I need to do some further investigation. Okay, what does that mean? So our sales team gets 3 questions answered. The first is, why do you want to buy the property? Why? Second is, why not? Right? Like, what would be like the reason why you wouldn't buy it? And the third one is, what do you and me need to do to get this deal going? These are the 3 things. And with that, we have like a good, like, all around pictures, and then you test their level of commitment. And then, of course, build some urgency, build some scarcity. It's like Friday coming up, right? Or you went over this website. There's just like 2 more things. So, well, I should better grab it, right? And play a little bit with that.
Those are great questions. Appreciate that. 2 more questions for you, and then we're done. Appreciate your time very much. So when I heard you talking at the Land Scaling Summit, I think it was you said something to the effect of, you should be doing deals where you have buyers. I'm wondering, how do you determine where you have buyers? Like, what specifically do you look for to say, yes, there is officially enough buyers here to buy this type of property?
Literally, the only thing we can really look on is the market itself, right? We always try to look into markets where you have a bunch of sold properties in the last like 12 months, 6 months, right? Where you see something and you don't have more than that for sale. Oh, it's a little bit less, maybe 50%, 60%, because then inventory will churn, right? I mean, there are websites where you can do that, right? Like, I don't know, Lot Hunt or Land Insights or whatever. like where you can just like see how fast is the market. And when you see, hey, you have like 30 properties sold in the last 6 months and you have like 10 listed and you see average days on market are 90, then that's the goal, right? But don't go in areas where you don't see any stuff moving. Well, we see like, stuff in Florida that was gone in 30 days, or in Texas like last year, it's now 60 days, right? When you go more rural in Tennessee, that was like 60 days before, it's now like 120 days, right? And what was 120 days before is probably 240 now, right? So you need to be prepared for that. And in the end, I think everything you do in business is go to that what buyers sell, right? Like, I mean, you can't sell a freezer to an Eskimo, right? They don't need it. They just put their stuff outside, right? That's a classical thing. So you would sell them a heater, right? Like that's what they really need. And this is how you should think, I think, about like, where do you go for, right?
Yeah, totally. So last question. I know you mentioned you've got a cash buyers list that you market to. And I'm curious, what did the most active cash buyers look like? I don't know how much you've dived into this to really understand like the most active people who will buy the most stuff, but if you could paint a picture of who they are, how could we reverse engineer the process and find these specific types of people?
So we work a lot with Buyerfinder on this from Melissa Jarrett, right? The buyerfinder.io. You get the data out of there. This is where we start our research. And then we have like an AI tool that scrapes people like which have the same profession or the same companies or whatever in that area. And then we organize a reach out to them. Like literally always look, what is your property type, right? Like there are mobile home properties, there are RV properties, there are hunting properties, there are like all kind of different properties. Then it's just like, like right now we're selling for some guys, 60 lots, they are subdividers in Mississippi, right? And I look at the products and these products are mobile home lots over and over. So we started a massive reach out to the mobile home sellers in that area, right? Like a Clayton or whatever, the representatives of Clayton, because these people have a product like a mobile home and they need land for it. They organize like the whole financing of that thing. They're like cash buyers, right? Like they organize the whole project for that end buyer. So always think about who would buy that loan. That can be a builder, a developer. That can be mobile home people. That can be RV people or whatever, right?
No, awesome. Cool. Well, Robin, again, thanks for your time. Totally appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us. If people want to find out more about you, I know we've mentioned it a couple of times, but what are the different websites they should go to learn more?
So if you're a land investor and you would like to work with us in funding or dispo or whatever else, we run like every Thursday community call. It's thelandpilot.com. We have an own Facebook group. Come in there. We're around like 1,000 people in the moment. It's pretty fun to call, always 30, 40 people. We have brilliant people that come there and teach. Thelandpilot.com is like our center of everything. Like we have a portal in the back end where you can do your funding, where you can do your dispositions and all that. Probably the best thing. Other than that, like Facebook is a good place to reach me, right? Robin Seib or Instagram. That's where you get me. Send me a message there. This is what we do. We love to work with the land industry. We love it. Thank you for having me, Thess. You were a really good interviewer. I think you have done that 210 episodes. Did I hear that right? Right. Thanks. So thank you for everything you do for the community too. I know that you're a huge pillar for every and each of us, right?
Yeah, appreciate that. If you want to check out the show notes for this episode, just go to retipster.com/210 or 210. That's where you can find links to all the stuff that Robin mentioned. And again, Robin, appreciate the kind words. Appreciate you talking to me today. And I hope the listeners out there learned a lot. I know I did.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for listening, spending that like 1.5 hours with us.
I know, flew right by.
Maybe one last thing. If you ever want to comp a property, we run a comps call every morning, right? It's on the Land Pilot. You can bring it there. We can talk your deals through because this is what we really want to do. All of us is doing deals, right? So thank you for having me and talk to you soon.